CSN students don't don't go to school in a vacuum. They're not in an academic bubble getting their education. Most CSN students are from Las Vegas. They live in Las Vegas or the area. They live at home, whether like parents or their own home. And so it's not like me. And many other of us, maybe I went away for college. I grew up in Arizona. My mom was in Las Vegas. I grew up in Phoenix, but I went to Provo, Utah for school. I was in an academic bubble. I lived just off campus at BYU. All my social life was at BYU. My work was at BYU. I did have family in the area, but I was BYU. My college is it. I went away from college, and so for CSN students, they have a life. They're not in an academic bubble. They have kids, they have family, they have jobs, they have concerns, they have extended family, they have bills, they have all kinds of things going on. And it's important to recognize that students at CSN are that way. That's what they are. They don't get their education's not in a vacuum. They have other concerns, and sometimes those other concerns become number one very quickly. And so I felt it was very important to make sure over my 3 years of probationary period here to learn about student life. How can I work with my students? How can I help them be successful? I took a 10 habits of mind for college students, right? First generation student, a good chunk of our CSN students are first generation students, and so first generation students, student services for first generation students, right? How to help students, creating a life skills challenge for college students. As you go through my certificates, you can see that I've worked on how to work with my students. How do you retain them? Students very easily drop, but that's kind of the CSN students. They have a life, and so they sometimes drop rather quickly. So how do you retain them? How do you help them, stay in school? Not that life is not important, but how do you balance that? And so I have all kinds of certificates of videos and classes I've taken, and working with those students, talking to them, encouraging them, inspiring them. How do you balance things? Reframing failure. I've had students that struggle in school. How do you reframe failure? I've had students who they failed my class the first time, they had me again. I talked with them. We had a discussion. What caused the poor grade last time? What can we do differently? So I've specifically had that conversation with multiple students. They get an F from me, and I've had multiple, two that I can remember off the top of my head. They try again, so it's like they want to be successful. So I had a reframing failure, professional development. How do we build on failure? The famous saying, "You're only a failure if you don't get back up," right? And so, improving student retention, mental health, and depression in students. How do they handle the emotional side of going to college? And so student life is extremely important for CSN students, and I've worked the last 3 years, and I believe I've demonstrated that I work with my students. In the teaching section, I have emails from students on how I've worked with them, and I've demonstrated that I've taken advantage of the 3 years of professional development training for student life and helping my students achieve success.